The early morning rain trickled between the metal beams of the Williamsburg Bridge, forming small rivers that seeped into the cracked asphalt and pooled in dark puddles. Beneath the giant structure, where traffic roared like a hungry monster above the heads of the oblivious, young Liam arranged a piece of cardboard to sleep on. He was 15 years old, but his frail body and ever-alert posture made him seem even younger, a miniature survivor in that concrete kingdom that devoured lives every day. He had learned to listen to the city like someone deciphering secret codes, the click of footsteps indicating danger, the rustling of coats signaling approach, the dragging of cans revealing silent disputes over territory. The street was his master, and he obeyed. Always. Because those who disobeyed didn't last long. That night, however, something was wrong. It wasn't the icy wind hitting the metal of the bridge, nor the smell of wet garbage wafting from the nearby alleys. It was something else, a strange, muffled noise that stood out from the usual chaos. A breath. Someone trying to be silent, but failing. Liam froze. He moved slowly like a wild cat and placed his hand on the damp concrete to peer behind a graffiti-covered pillar. His eyes, trained to see in the dark, caught a silhouette slumped among abandoned boxes. A man, too well dressed to be there, a dark grey suit now completely soaked with rain and dirt, expensive shoes, the kind that cost the equivalent of 2 months' worth of meals, if he still had a home and regular meals, and a clock, brilliant even in the dark, metallic pulse, heavy, expensive enough to buy all the blankets distributed by volunteers in an entire winter. Liam felt his heart race. A millionaire there, under the bridge. Had they thrown him in there? Was he lost? Was he mugged? Was he still alive? The boy approached cautiously, his body tense, ready to run or attack if necessary. The street didn't allow for naivete. People who were unconscious sometimes weren't unconscious. Sometimes they were bait. But when he got closer, he saw the man's chest rise and fall unevenly, alive, disoriented, and with a deep scratch on his face, as if he had been dragged across the ground. "Hey," Liam murmured, not quite sure why he was speaking. His golden rule was always to disappear at the slightest sign of someone else's trouble. The man opened his eyes abruptly, as if waking from a nightmare. "What?" he gasped. "What are you doing here?" Liam found the question strange. What was he doing there? That place was more home to him than anywhere else. "I live here," he replied simply. "The right question is, what are you doing?" The man tried to stand, but his body gave way. He clutched his wrist as if something throbbed inside. The expression of pain, however, was accompanied by something else. Panic, a deep, visceral fear that didn't match the elegant clothes or the physique of someone accustomed to the top of the social ladder. Liam realized something bad had happened to that man. Something really bad. The boy took a half-step back. This could be a big problem. Police, gangs, dirty money, crimes that aren't solved without leaving bodies in their wake. But then he saw something that made him stop. Inside the inner pocket of the jacket, half exposed, were crumpled documents. And at the top, illegible but recognizable, the logo of one of the largest technology companies in the United States. He swallowed hard. That man was someone important. Very important. "You need to leave," the stranger murmured, trying to reach into one of his pockets. "They will come back." Liam's eyes widened. They? Who were they? Why would a millionaire be hiding under a bridge? And why did he seem so desperate to warn a street kid? Before he could ask anything else, the man fainted again, his body collapsing heavily onto the wet crates. Liam stood there, staring at him, his breath quickening. The instinct to flee screamed within him, but another impulse, quieter and more unexpected, whispered, "If you leave, you'll never know what happened, nor will you have another chance like this." And there was the watch, the suit, the mystery, the danger, and an unsettling feeling that this encounter was no coincidence. The city breathed above them, indifferent, but something had changed. An invisible thread now connected the boy with no future and the man full of secrets. And somehow Liam knew that his life, that rigid, cold, predictable life, was about to go off the rails. Something terrible, big, and dirty had happened, and he had just stumbled right in the middle of it. The rain finally subsided, but the air remained thick with dampness and the smell of rust. Dawn was still waning, and darkness stubbornly shrouded the streets of Williamsburg in a heavy veil. Liam dragged the man's body to a spot on the bridge, where the wind wasn't so strong, a makeshift shelter he used when he needed to disappear. The man weighed more than he appeared. Despite his soaked suit and slumped posture, there was something rigid about his build, tense muscles of someone not used to being carried, but to commanding. It was like moving a part of an expensive, precise machine, built never to fail. Liam assessed the stranger more closely, searching for objects that might provide clues. ID, card, anything that would reveal who he was. He found a corporate badge pinned to the inside pocket of the suit jacket, partially hidden by a thin leather wallet. There was a name on it, Daniel W. Hawthorne, and underneath, a title, Chief Financial Officer, Hawthorne Dynamics. Liam wasn't a fan of newspapers, but surviving on the streets required understanding the world outside the concrete jungle. And Hawthorne Dynamics was gigantic, a company involved in technology, logistics, tracking systems, and government contracts. A multi-million-dollar empire. A machine that moved New York's economy like few others. That's when things started to get really weird. Why would the CFO of one of the country's largest companies be disoriented, injured, and hiding under a bridge at 3 in the morning? The question swirled in Liam's head with the force of a punch. He adjusted the man's wallet in his jacket pocket and observed his expression. A deep cut marked the side of his face. There were fresh bruises on his neck, as if strong hands had squeezed his skin. His fingernails were dirty, as if he had gripped the ground trying to escape, and his white shirt, or what should have been white, was marked with irregular stains of mud and blood. Liam swallowed hard. Suddenly, the silence of the early morning seemed heavier. He looked around, alert. Distant sobs of passing cars sounded like threats. The sound of footsteps, even imaginary ones, made his body tense. He never liked drawing attention to himself, and now he felt that anyone who showed up there would be a threat, not only to Hawthorne, but to himself as well. Still, something in his mind kept repeating, why did he say, they'll be back? In an impatient impulse, the boy rummaged through the man's other boxes, hoping to find something valuable that would justify the whole enigma. Instead, he found a sealed envelope, roughly crumpled. No name, no recipient, just a red stamp pressed onto the flap. It wasn't wax, it was ink, applied with precision. The symbol, a triangle with a circle in the center. Liam didn't recognize it, but the symbol conveyed something wrong, something heavy. It didn't belong to the clean world of big corporations. It seemed more like something clandestine, secret, dangerous. The boy almost opened the envelope, but a sudden movement by Hawthorne made him stop. The man woke up panting, trying unsuccessfully to get up. "Don't touch that," he whispered, his voice hoarse and his gaze a mixture of despair and pleading. "They killed him." Liam frowned. "Who are they?" Hawthorne didn't answer, his eyes fixed on the envelope for a second that seemed an eternity, until he grimaced, as if a deep pain had pierced him. Discreet tears mingled with the grime in the corner of his eyes. "You don't understand," he murmured. "If they find out you helped me, they'll come looking for you too." Liam felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The street was full of dangers, but this was different. They weren't thieves, it wasn't the police, it wasn't a fight over territory. It was bigger, and he had just gotten involved without realizing it. Trying to push away the growing sense of threat, the boy studied Hawthorne again. The rigid posture of the upper class was broken. There was no trace of the cold elegance that executives carried on their shoulders. There was only a broken man, stripped of power, trembling with fear of something Liam didn't even understand. But understanding was no longer optional. He was inside. The city began to change color as the grey light of dawn tinged the distant buildings. The bridge, once dark and indifferent, took on cold, bluish hues. The night was over, but the problem was only beginning. There, in that makeshift shelter, the boy and the millionaire formed an unlikely pair, but both knew, without needing to say it, that they were now linked by something greater than coincidence. Something dirty, something that Hawthorne carried as a burden too heavy for a world as exposed as his, something that had cost someone's life. And the fact that the envelope was there, sealed and untouched, meant only one thing: the worst was yet to come. The grey light of dawn filtered through the cracks in the bridge, revealing the accumulated dirt on the concrete and the bits of damp paper scattered on the ground. Liam watched Hawthorne with growing unease. The millionaire looked worse than before. His face was pale, and cold sweat marked his forehead despite the frigid weather. His breathing, irregular, sounded as if each movement cost him more than he had to give. But that wasn't what really worried the boy. It was the conviction that they were being watched. The street taught one to listen to silence as much as to noise. And there was something wrong with that morning emptiness. It wasn't an absence of sound, it was an absence of the right sound. No hurried footsteps of residents going to work, no distant shouts, no continuous rumble of delivery vans that usually cross the avenue. It was as if the city was holding its breath. Liam stood up slowly and walked to the edge of the shelter under the bridge. The street ahead looked normal, but his instinct screamed that something was out of place. A black car was parked on the other side of the avenue. Tinted windows, engine off. It didn't look abandoned. It looked like it was waiting. "You said that someone died," Liam began, without taking his eyes off the vehicle. "Who?" Hawthorne hesitated before answering. When he finally did, his voice sounded strained inside. "My assistant, Peter Lang. He discovered something he shouldn't have, and he tried to warn me." Hawthorne closed his eyes, as if reliving the moment was too difficult. He didn't know that. They were already listening. Liam turned around slowly. "And they did that to you?" Hawthorne did not reply, but the silence was more revealing than any words. The black car remained parked, motionless, an observer. Liam felt a different kind of chill in his stomach. It wasn't fear. It was the feeling that, for the first time in a long time, he needed to do something he wasn't used to. Decide. Not about where to sleep, what to eat, or who to run from, but to decide who he would be in the face of the chaos that had fallen into his lap. "That envelope," Liam pointed with his chin, "is that what they want?" Hawthorne nodded, squeezing his own arm as if trying to stop the pain from advancing. "It's more important than you think. It can't fall into the wrong hands. No, it can't fall into their hands." Liam crossed his arms. "And why didn't you turn it into the police?" The millionaire laughed without humor, a short, bitter laugh. "Because the police work for them." Liam's heart raced. That was it. It wasn't a gang. It wasn't an ordinary criminal organization. It was something too big, too deep, with roots planted right within the system that was supposed to protect people like Hawthorne. And even more so, people like him, invisible to everyone else. "So you want me to, what?" Liam raised an eyebrow. "Become a messenger? Carry this envelope somewhere?" Hawthorne opened his eyes, fixing them on the boy with a look that mixed determination and despair. "I want you to survive. And to make a decision that I can't make." "What decision? Open the envelope or destroy it?" Liam blinked. That didn't make sense. Why didn't Hawthorne, the owner of the envelope, simply make that decision? The millionaire seemed to be able to read his mind. "I can't open it, not me." His voice faltered. "And if I destroy it, I'll die anyway." He paused and added, "But if you make the decision, maybe there's still a chance." The boy felt the invisible weight of that responsibility fall upon his thin shoulders. He had never had power over anything, over his future, over his past, over the people who passed him by without even noticing his existence. And now, a man with enough money to buy the entire bridge was saying that he, Liam, had control over something that could save or destroy lives. Before he could answer, a metallic clang echoed in the distance. Liam instinctively ducked down, while Hawthorne's eyes widened. The car that was parked across the street turned on its headlights. "They found us," Hawthorne whispered. The boy grabbed the envelope and stuffed it inside his coat in a fraction of a second. He didn't know what he was doing. He only knew he needed to run. Run as he always ran, but this time for something bigger than himself. Hawthorne grabbed Liam's wrist. "Listen," he was fighting for breath. "If I don't get out of here alive, you need to find someone named Elijah Crane. He knows what to do." "Who is this guy?" Liam asked. But Hawthorne didn't answer. The car doors opened. 2 men got out. Dark clothes, precise movements. They didn't look like robbers. They looked like executioners. Liam made the decision without thinking. He grabbed Hawthorne's arm, trying to help him to his feet. "If you get up now, we'll run away." "No!" Hawthorne gripped the boy's shoulder firmly. "Run! Now!" Liam hesitated for half a second, just long enough for the men to start crossing the street. Hawthorne pushed him hard. "Run!" And Liam ran, not like a kid running away from the police, not like someone trying to survive the cold night. He ran as if he had just become the owner of a secret too valuable for anyone to remain alive after discovering it. And behind him, under the bridge, the sound of deep voices echoed. The conflict was no longer approaching. He was officially inside it. Liam's breath burned his throat as he ran through the wet streets of Williamsburg. The city was waking slowly, but it was still early enough that few eyes witnessed his desperate escape. His footsteps echoed in the puddles, and each jump, each dodge, seemed heavy with a burden he had never felt before. The envelope pressed against his chest was a constant reminder. Now there was something inside it that was worth more than his own life. He turned the corner and entered a narrow alley, a route known only to those who lived on the streets. That labyrinth of trash and shadows had been his territory for years, and it would be to his advantage now. He stopped behind a rusty container, forcing himself to catch his breath while listening to the distant rumble of an engine. The black car had entered the neighborhood. They were hunting. Meanwhile, under the bridge, the men in dark clothes crawled through the space where Hawthorne was. The subplot that had been only hinted at until then was beginning to unfold there. The secret organization behind the envelope. "Where's the package?" one of the men asked, his voice low, controlled, but deadly. Hawthorne, too weak to run, stared at the two with a mixture of anger and resignation. He had spent years believing he could keep his double life separate, the brilliant executive by day, the silent accomplice in a shady project by night. Now, it was all collapsing. "You're making a mistake," he said, spitting blood. "The only thing wrong here," the other man replied, "was you thinking you could leave." Hawthorne himself was a living subplot, a divided man, tormented by decisions he made within Hawthorne Dynamics, decisions that fueled a clandestine network of data manipulation and surveillance that completely escaped public scrutiny. He had tried to warn someone, anyone, but who would believe a powerful man shouting against the very empire he helped build? Nobody, except perhaps the boy he had just put in the line of fire. Liam heard footsteps entering the alley and cowered behind the container. A group of homeless people walked by, arguing about food, but his presence brought another problem. Many of them knew him, some envied him, others simply didn't care. But if any of them noticed he was hiding, they might as well point him out to the men in the black car in exchange for a few dollars. He needed to move. As the footsteps faded, Liam ran through an open side door that led to the back of an old underground parking garage. He hurried down the damp ramp and found refuge behind a concrete pillar, where he finally had time to think. or try. He took the envelope from his pocket and stared at it in the dim light. The triangle circle symbol seemed to pulse on the paper, almost alive, and the question Hawthorne had placed in his hands now weighed like lead: open or destroy. But a third option now emerged, handing it over to someone who knew what to do. Elijah Crane. Who was he? Where could I find him? The boy had never heard that name before, and the possibilities were many. A journalist? An activist? A former employee? An enemy of the organization? As he held the envelope, another narrative thread unfolded. His own past. For years, Liam had learned not to trust anyone. Abandoned too early, raised on the streets, he had developed temporary alliances that never lasted more than a season. He knew thieves, smugglers, small-time crooks, but none of those people were useful now. They would be the first to sell the envelope to the group that was hunting Hawthorne, and that raised another subplot, the risk of trusting someone. He thought of someone. Marla. A woman in her early 30s who lived near the bridge and who from time to time shared food with him. She had no power whatsoever, but she possessed a rare quality on the streets. She owed nothing to anyone. No favors, no money, no loyalty. She was the most disconnected person he knew, and that made her alley a temporary safe haven. Liam stood cautiously, scanning the area with his eyes before leaving the underground parking garage. The black car was somewhere above, circling like a silent predator, but it knew routes most people ignored. Still, at every turn, he felt time pressing down on him. The organization was moving. Hawthorne was in their hands. Elijah Crane was a name without a face. And he, a boy with nothing, now carried a secret capable of bringing down the men who ran the system. It was a subplot within a subplot. And of all of them, one thing was certain: none of this was going to end well. Not without someone bleeding first. The silence under the bridge grew as heavy as the cold night air. Ethan took a deep breath. He no longer looked like the confident and calculating millionaire. He looked like someone trying to stop the past from swallowing him whole. "What happened?" Tyler asked quietly, almost fearing the answer. Ethan closed his eyes. When she spoke, her voice came out broken. "I was 17 years old. I wasn't much older than you." Tyler hadn't expected this. Ethan had always seemed impenetrable, a man unshakable by anything. "My father. He was everything I am not," Ethan continued. "Cold, violent, proud. And when my mother decided to run away from home, I tried to go with her." Tyler swallowed hard. He found out. A train passed overhead, causing the entire structure to vibrate. Ethan's confession came along with a metallic sound. "He fell from the same bridge you were using as a house." Tyler's eyes widened. Ethan took a deep breath, staring at the dark water of the river. "Some people said it was an accident. Others said he slipped while trying to reach me." Tyler remained silent. "But you think it was your fault?" He finished carefully. Ethan finally looked at him. His eyes were red. "I don't think, I bet." Tyler opened his mouth to reply, but Ethan raised his hand. "And now, when I saw you under that bridge, it felt like the past had come back to judge me." Tyler took a deep breath. "And why did you run away from all of that? From the money, from the people? That made you a millionaire, didn't it?" Ethan reused some humor. "It made me rich, yes. The kind of wealth that buys everything. Except peace." Tyler remained silent for several long seconds. Then, without thinking much, he said, "Maybe you're not running from the past. You're running from what you think you deserve." Ethan stood motionless. No response, no mask, no escape. And something in his expression changed. It wasn't anger, nor pain. It was recognition, as if for the first time someone had said what he had never admitted even to himself. The cold wind swept between the bridge's pillars, carrying a sound that resembled a distant lament. Ethan looked away, as if trying to piece together each fragment that Tyler had just taken apart with a simple and true sentence. Tyler realized he had never had power over anything. And now, unintentionally, He had struck someone who seemed untouchable. Ethan took a deep breath. "You're smart. Smarter than I was at your age." Tyler gave a half smile. "Life teaches you fast when there's no one to hold you back." Ethan ran a hand over his face, still battling the inner storm. "Where do you sleep when you're not here?" Tyler shrugged. "Wherever it's possible, sometimes in a shelter, sometimes not." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, as if that answer hurt more than it should have. "And you don't have anyone?" Tyler bit the inside of his cheek. He had. Ethan understood that he shouldn't push him. The silence stretched until Tyler, for reasons unknown, asked, "And you? Do you have someone?" Ethan laughed, a short, almost bitter laugh. "People, yes, but nobody." The answer left a strange taste in the air, two completely different worlds, and yet filled with the same loneliness. That's when Ethan did something unexpected. He stood up, brushed the dust off his expensive coat, and looked at Tyler as if making a difficult decision, one that changes life. "Tyler, do you want to leave here with me?" Tyler blinked, confused. "Like this?" Ethan took a deep breath. "I want to get you off the streets tonight. Give you a warm place, decent food, a shower, nothing in return." Tyler frowned suspiciously, because those who live on the streets learn that nothing is for nothing. "Why?" he asked. Ethan took a while to answer, and when he did speak, he didn't sound like a millionaire, but like someone trying to pay off an invisible debt. "Because someone should have done this for me when I was your age, and they didn't." Tyler didn't expect it to affect him so much. His chest tightened, his stomach, always tense, relaxed a little. "What if I say yes?" Tyler asked. Ethan stared at him without blinking. "So tonight is the last night you sleep under a bridge." Tyler's heart pounded. He wanted to trust, but trusting was difficult. Still, something inside him told him that this could be the first real chance of his life. He took a deep breath, and he replied, "So, yes." Tyler stood up slowly, as if every muscle was afraid to believe its own decision. Ethan watched intently, as if any sudden movement could shatter the newly formed trust between them. When Tyler approached, he noticed something strange. Ethan didn't seem like the powerful man from the magazines, nor the ruthless businessman from the headlines. It seemed human, perhaps even more fragile than himself. "He is sure?" Tyler asked, in a last vestige of self-protection. Ethan nodded. "I do. And if you change your mind, let me know. But I hope you don't." Tyler swallowed hard. They started walking off the bridge. The city above looked like another planet. Bright lights, rushing cars, people who had no idea what was happening beneath their own feet. Tyler felt a lump in his throat as he left that cold corner behind. It was awful, but it was the only home he had known for months. Ethan noticed the hesitation. "You don't need to be ashamed." "Ashamed of what?" "Of being afraid. I would be too." Tyler looked at him, surprised. Ethan continued, "When I left home, it seemed like the whole world was made of closed doors. But you opened the first one yourself. That already puts you 1,000 steps ahead of where I was." Something warm and strange spread across Tyler's chest. He wasn't used to hearing things like that. Upon reaching the sidewalk, Ethan unlocked a parked black car. It was elegant, discreet, nothing extravagant. When the door opened, Tyler froze. The leather seats, impeccable cleanliness, the smell of newness. It was all so far removed from his reality that it seemed like a trap. Ethan realized it again. "If you want to sit in the back, that's fine." Tyler took a deep breath. Perhaps for the first time in his life, someone had anticipated his fear even before he spoke about it. "No," Tyler murmured. "I think I'll go ahead." Ethan smiled, a small but genuine smile. Tyler got into the car slowly, as if any sudden movement could make it disappear. When the door closed, the world outside, the bridge, the cold, the street, was left behind. Ethan started the car. In the comfortable silence that settled in, Tyler looked out the window, watching the city go by, as if he were seeing it all for the first time. "Where are we going?" he asked, without taking his eyes off the street. Ethan kept his hands firmly on the steering wheel. "To a place where you can sleep without fear." Tyler turned his face towards him. Ethan added, "And maybe to a place where I can finally stop hiding." The car accelerated. Two different worlds, but that night they were starting to head in the same direction. The car drove along the lit streets until the buildings seemed taller, the sidewalks cleaner, and the stairs more indifferent. Tyler shrank back slightly. Those streets weren't made for someone like him, and he knew it. Ethan noticed the discomfort. "Relax. Nobody here is really looking at anyone." Tyler let out a short sigh. "This doesn't make me feel any more at ease." Ethan laughed too, for the first time that night, a soft, almost forgotten sound. They turned a corner and entered a luxury gated community. Automatic gates, armored guardhouse, armed security. Tyler felt his heart race. The contrast was almost absurd. The security guard simply nodded. Ethan didn't even need to roll down the window. It was the kind of silent privilege Tyler had never witnessed so closely. When the car pulled into the underground garage, the air changed. Clean, air-conditioned, silent. It felt like another world. Tyler looked around with wide eyes. "Do you live here?" Ethan replied as he parked. "I live here, but I never felt at home." They got out of the car. Tyler observed the cars around him. All expensive, all gleaming, as if no one had ever used them before. In the elevator, the tension became even more palpable. Tyler could feel his own breath echoing in the enclosed space. Ethan stood beside him, but without intruding on the space, a firm, not oppressive presence. When they reached the top floor, the elevator doors opened directly into the apartment. Tyler took a hesitant step inside. The view was breathtaking. Enormous windows revealed the entire city. Endless lights, distant skyscrapers. The apartment was spacious, minimalist, and elegant. Everything organized, everything perfect. Too perfect. Tyler stood there, unsure where to place his hands, his feet, his gaze. Ethan realized. "You are safe here. The place is yours today." Tyler swallowed hard. "It looks like a museum." Ethan let out a tired sigh. "That's exactly how I feel living here." Tyler looked at him, surprised. Ethan continued, "When you have no one around, a house becomes just a bunch of expensive walls." Tyler looked away, down at the floor. "At least, you have walls." Ethan remained silent for a few seconds before saying, "That's why you're here. No one should face the world alone." Tyler took a deep breath, touched and haunted by those words. "So what do I do now?" he asked, almost in a whisper. Ethan pointed to a hallway. "First, take a hot bath. Then, I'll prepare something for you to eat." Tyler stared at him, incredulous. "Do you cook?" Ethan gave a half smile. "Terrible. But today, I want to try." Tyler smiled for real, perhaps for the first time in a long time. He started walking towards the hallway, but stopped before entering. He turned around, and he said something Ethan didn't expect. "Thank you for not leaving me there." Ethan did not respond immediately. When she answered, her voice was low and vulnerable. "I needed to get out of there too, Tyler. I wasn't the only one who pulled you off the bridge." Tyler felt a shiver run down his spine. And then, finally, he entered the hallway. Ethan watched him disappear toward the bathroom. Then she ran her hand over her face and let out a tremor she had been holding back from the beginning, as if that night had changed something far greater than he was ready to admit. Hot steam from the shower still lingered in the hallway when Tyler returned to the living room, wearing clean clothes that Ethan had left on the bed, loose but comfortable clothes. For the first time in a long time, Tyler seemed young. Not a survivor, not someone fighting the cold, just a boy. Ethan was in the kitchen, staring at the pots and pans as if they were indecipherable enigmas. Tyler approached slowly. "Are you okay?" Ethan raised a spatula with a defeated expression. Apparently, I don't know how to do anything involving fire. Tyler laughed, a genuine light laugh. Ethan smiled back. However, the atmosphere changed when silence fell between them. Something was about to happen, something that neither of them could name. Ethan opened the refrigerator, grabbed simple ingredients, and tried to appear natural. You must be hungry. Tyler watched his every move. You didn't need to do any of that for me. Ethan stopped, holding a package of pasta, and took a deep breath. Yes, I need to. Tyler frowned. Why? Ethan didn't answer immediately. He rested his hands on the counter, his head down, as if carefully choosing his next words. Because when I saw you on that bridge, I saw me. Tyler froze. You? Ethan nodded, still without looking at him. I've slept on the street before, too. Tyler was breathless for a second. It was impossible to imagine Ethan, the impeccable, wealthy man who owned that gigantic apartment, living on the street. When? Ethan finally lifted his face. After my father died, my family blamed me. They said I had pushed him, that I was a monster. Tyler felt a knot in his stomach. You were expelled. Ethan gave a humorless smile. Expelled is kind. They made it seem like I didn't exist. And the street didn't want me either. Tyler approached slowly, as if he were approaching an injured animal. But you managed to get out. Ethan stared at the dough in the pan, as if it answered all the world's dilemmas. I did it. By force. Tyler waited, but Ethan didn't continue. And perhaps it was better that way. Some memories still had teeth. Ethan placed the dish on the table. It was simple, almost childlike, pasta with butter and a little cheese. But to Tyler it looked like a feast. He sat down slowly. He took his first bite, and it froze. Ethan's eyes widened. What? Is it bad? Did I put too much cheese? Too little? Tyler shook his head, struggling to speak. It's okay. Ethan exhaled as if he had been holding his breath for 10 minutes. The two ate in silence. A comfortable silence, unprecedented. But the night still held something in store. When they finished, Ethan collected the plates. Tyler watched him, curious and thoughtful. Ethan. Ethan turned it around. Hey? Tyler hesitated, but there were questions he couldn't keep to himself. What do you want from me? Ethan stopped. For a moment the air seemed trapped between them. I want to help you. Why? Ethan took a few steps until he stopped a few meters from him. Because maybe you're the first person in a long time who makes me feel human. Tyler swallowed hard. And is that good or bad? Ethan gave a short laugh. Not happy, not sad, but honest. Scary. The atmosphere became heavy, hot, dense. An invisible thread connected the two, until bam, bam, bam! Loud knocking on the door. They both turned around at the same time. Ethan turned pale. Tyler instinctively took a step back. More beats, stronger. Ethan, open the door. We know someone's in there. The voice was masculine and authoritarian. Ethan closed his eyes, as if that moment were inevitable. Tyler whispered, Who is it? Ethan took a deep breath. They're the kind of people who shouldn't even know you exist. Tyler felt his whole body go cold. Ethan then turned to him, and his expression said it all. From that moment on, nothing could be safer. The beatings became even stronger, almost brutal. Bam, bam, bam! Ethan, open it now! The voice shouted from outside, impatient and aggressive. Tyler instinctively recoiled, his heart pounding so fast it felt like it wanted to burst out of his chest. Ethan didn't move immediately. He seemed motionless, frozen, as if he were about to confront a ghost from the past. Tyler whispered, Who are they? Ethan took a deep breath and finally replied, My uncle and the family lawyer. They never accepted the investigation into my father's death. They never accepted that I was innocent. Tyler felt a shiver run down his spine. Another round of punches, this time accompanied by, "We know you're not alone. Open now, or we'll use the master key." Ethan walked slowly to the door, like someone walking towards a verdict. Before turning the doorknob, he glanced over his shoulder. "Stay behind me. No matter what they say, don't answer." Tyler nodded, swallowing his fear. Ethan opened the door. Two men entered the apartment without asking permission. The first one, tall and burly, wearing a dark suit, was the uncle, Richard. The second, thinner and with eyes too cold for a lawyer, was Collins. Richard didn't even try to hide his contempt when he saw Ethan. "I knew you were up to something." Collins scanned the apartment, attentive, calculating. "Where is he?" he asked. Ethan stood firm. "You shouldn't be here. This is trespassing." Richard stared at it as one might stare at an inconvenient insect. "You're in no position to demand anything, not after what you've done." Tyler noticed Ethan's hand trembling just for a second, but it trembled. Collins finally spotted Tyler over there near the hallway. "So this is the boy." Tyler felt the blood drain from his face. Ethan stepped forward, shielding him with his body. "You won't get near him." Richard smiled, a cold, triumphant smile. "He knows, doesn't he, about his father?" Tyler felt Ethan stiffen. "And you also know," Collins finished, "that the report was reopened last week?" Ethan turned to Collins, incredulous. "You wouldn't dare." Richard crossed his arms. "When the family fortune is at stake, we dare anything." Tyler didn't understand immediately, but the answer came too quickly. "If the case is reopened and you are found responsible, you lose everything." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. Tyler felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. Richard continued relentlessly. "So here's your only chance to avoid it." He pointed at Tyler. "Stay away from that boy, immediately." Ethan did not respond. Collins stepped forward. "Any connection you have with him can be interpreted as motivation, instability, even emotional manipulation." Tyler swallowed hard. Richard concluded with calculated cruelty. "Choose, now, him or your whole life." The silence that filled the apartment was devastating. Tyler looked at Ethan, waiting, fearing, inwardly praying that he would say something. Ethan opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Tyler's heart sank. For a moment, it seemed like Ethan was going to collapse, as if he didn't have the strength to stand by that choice, until he took a deep, steady breath and looked directly at his uncle. "I've already chosen." Tyler felt a shock run through his body. Richard frowned. "What are you saying?" Ethan stepped forward, his voice firmer than ever. "If you want to destroy me, go ahead. But I'm not going to abandon him." Richard's eyes widened. Collins lost his composure for a second. Tyler felt something warm in his chest that he couldn't name. Richard stepped forward until his finger almost touched Ethan's chest. "You're going to regret this." Ethan stared at him without blinking. "I've regretted a lot of things, Uncle, but this one I won't." The two men exchanged glances. Collins was the first to speak. "Come on, Richard. This isn't over yet, not even close." The two left, slamming the door shut. Ethan stood still, breathing rapidly, as if he had just finished running. Tyler approached slowly. "You did this for me?" Ethan turned around, his face tense, his eyes gleaming with something difficult to define. "I did it, because it was the right thing to do." Tyler felt the air trapped in his chest slowly release. But before I could say anything, Ethan's phone vibrated. He looked at the screen, his face paled. "It's the police." Tyler froze, and Ethan whispered, "They officially reopened the case." The last sentence fell between them like a judgment. The bridge that had united their lives that night. It had just collapsed. The apartment seemed smaller that morning. Smaller, colder, denser. The morning light streamed through the enormous windows, but it illuminated nothing. It only revealed the silent chaos that hung over them both. Ethan was sitting on the sofa, the phone still in his hand. He looked exhausted, not physically, but like someone who had finally stopped running after years of running from himself. Tyler stood near the wall, unsure of where he fit into this new setting. "What is going to happen now?" Tyler asked cautiously. Ethan looked up. Yes, they were afraid. But also something new, determination. "Now, I'll tell the truth, the whole truth." Tyler approached slowly. "They won't believe you." Ethan gave a tired smile. "They never believed me. But maybe it's time I stopped trying to convince people who never wanted to listen." Silence returned, heavy as lead. Then Tyler said something that surprised even himself. "And me? Where do I fit into all this?" Ethan became serious. "You're not going in. You shouldn't go in. That's what they want, for you to be the reason, for you to be used against me." Tyler felt his chest tighten. "Do you want me to leave?" This time the answer came immediately. "No." The word fell into the air like a pillar, firm, non-negotiable. Ethan stood up. He walked over to him. Tyler didn't move. "I don't want you to leave, Tyler, but I also can't let you be dragged into my past." Tyler raised his chin. "Do you think I don't know what it's like to deal with people who want to bury you alive? I've lived with that my whole life." That hit Ethan like a silent punch. Tyler continued. "You didn't lift me off the bridge only to let me fall again now." Ethan closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When it was opened, something was clear. Choice, and he chose. "Then stay with me. Until the end." Tyler nodded. Not out of obligation, but because for the first time, someone was willing to fight for him and not against him. Hours later, the doorbell rang again. This time, it wasn't the uncle, not even the lawyer. She was the detective responsible for reopening the case, a tall woman. Serious expression, clinical gaze. Ethan opened the door, ready to face yet another ghost. "Senior Harper?" she asked. "It is me." She studied him for a few seconds and then looked at Tyler, who was a few steps behind. "We received an anonymous request to reopen the case, and it included new information." Ethan frowned. "Anonymous request?" The detective nodded. "Yes, but the interesting thing is that this information points to another person who was present that night." Ethan's heart raced. "Who?" The detective opened the folder of documents. He took out a leaf. She turned to him, and he said, "Your uncle." Tyler put his hand to his mouth. Ethan stood motionless. The detective continued. "Someone who clearly has access to the family's internal files, sent proof that his uncle was on the bridge before his father fell." Ethan felt the world spin. "Someone," he repeated, incredulous. The detective confirmed it. Yes, the complaint was sent from a corporate laptop that, guess what, belongs to the law firm of Attorney Collins. The conclusion was clear, cruel, inevitable. Ethan looked at Tyler. Tyler looked back. The detective kept the folder. "For now, you are a witness, not a suspect, but we will need your cooperation." Ethan simply nodded. When she left, silence once more filled the apartment. But this time, it wasn't a silence of fear. It was the silence of survivors. Tyler walked over to Ethan. He stopped in front of him. "You are no longer alone." Ethan took a deep breath, and for the first time, believed those words. The silence in the apartment was so thick, it felt like a third character was there, breathing between the two of them. Tyler opened his eyes slowly, adjusting to the soft glow of the modern lights. On the other side of the sofa, Ethan watched the view through the glass window, but it was clear his mind was anywhere but the illuminated horizon. Tyler shifted, feeling the soft blanket slip slightly. It was still a shock, the clean, warm, comfortable texture, as if it were forbidden. Ethan heard the movement and turned around. "Did you sleep well?" Tyler hesitated. Sleeping well was a new concept. Strange, almost frightening. "Better than me. I deserve it." The phrase slipped out before he could catch it. Ethan narrowed his eyes, not in irritation, but in pain, as if that answer had hit him hard. "Never say that again." The voice came out firm, almost harsh. Do you have any idea how many people would give anything to have your strength? You survived things that even I, with all my money, couldn't endure. Tyler swallowed hard. He didn't know how to handle praise. He didn't know how to handle any of that. He began, but his voice failed him. Ethan took a step toward him, but stopped, as if respecting an invisible boundary. Can I ask you a question? Ethan said, with an almost unsettling seriousness. Tyler nodded, despite the sudden tightness in his chest. Ethan moved a little closer, slowly. Why did you trust me? Tyler felt his stomach churn. You knew that question would come up someday, but so soon. The truth was simple, brutally simple, and at the same time, it's difficult to say out loud. You looked at me. The answer was short, but sincere. Ethan frowned slightly. Tyler continued, his breathing uneven. Down there under the bridge, everyone walks past me as if I were part of the ground. Invisible. He touched his own chest nervously. But you saw me, and you didn't try to look away. You didn't try to pretend I didn't exist. Ethan took a deep breath, a movement that seemed to fight against something inside him. Tyler finished, almost whispering. And when you spoke to me, you weren't afraid. It was as if I were just a boy and not a problem. Silence returned, but now it was electric, vibrant, charged with something neither of them dared touch. Ethan took another step, slow, careful. Tyler, I was never afraid of you. Tyler looked up, a direct, honest encounter. Ethan seemed about to say something more, something big, something that had been bottled up for a long time, when his cell phone vibrated. He closed his eyes, annoyed. He picked up the device. Upon seeing the name on the screen, his face paled. Tyler realized it immediately. Who is it? Ethan hesitated. 2 long seconds. Someone from my past. His voice sounded heavy, scared. And if that person is calling now, it means the secret I told you yesterday. He swallowed hard. It is no longer buried. Tyler felt a shiver run down his spine. The peace of that night had ended before it had even begun. The phone vibrated again. Ethan stared at the visor as if it were a gun about to fire. Tyler watched every change in his face. Tension, fear, indecision, and something that looked almost like guilt. Finally, Ethan answered. Hello? Tyler couldn't hear the other person, but he could hear the silence, the kind of silence that only appears when someone receives news that changes everything. Ethan's body stiffened. When? A short break. Are you sure about that? Tyler felt his heart race, even though he didn't know what was happening. Ethan closed his eyes, resting one hand on the table as if he needed to hold on. I understand. I'm going there now. He hung up slowly. Tyler waited, but Ethan said nothing. He just breathed rapidly, as if he were trying to maintain his composure by a thread. What happened? Tyler asked, his voice firmer than it actually was. Ethan took a while to reply. Finally, he ran his hand through his hair and said, My brother, he's back. Tyler blinked, confused. Where did he come back from? Ethan laughed, but it wasn't humor. It was despair. From the place where I thought he would stay for a long time, a psychiatric hospital, maximum security ward. Tyler felt a chill on the back of his neck. Ethan continued, each word heavier than the last. He knows I found you. Tyler took a step back without realizing it. What does this have to do with me? I don't know him. Ethan stared at him with a look that mixed protectiveness and guilt. Because he's the only person who knows all my secret. And he never liked me trying to get close to someone. Tyler swallowed hard. Just that? He doesn't want you to have friends? Ethan shook his head slowly. No, Tyler, he doesn't want me to save anyone. The phrase hung in the air like a veiled threat. Tyler felt his heart beat faster. Save? Ethan finally confronted Tyler directly. No masks, without protection. The only truth he had been putting off since the previous night was the truth. Because he thinks I don't have that right. Not after what happened to my mother, and to the last person I tried to help. Tyler felt a deep chill. And what happened to her? Ethan hesitated for a second, a long, suffocating second, before answering. She disappeared. The word landed heavily, as if it filled the entire apartment. Tyler turned pale. Ethan took a step toward her, quick, almost instinctive. I would never hurt you, never. But my brother... He took a deep breath. He's not like me. The whole apartment seemed smaller, more cramped. It was as if the danger had entered along with the connection. Tyler finally managed to speak in a whisper. Is he coming after me? Ethan hesitated, and hesitation was the most frightening response of all. He is coming after us. The clock on the wall seemed taller than usual. Each tick was a countdown. Ethan began pacing back and forth, restless, a habit Tyler had never seen in him before. It seemed as if control, calmness, and calculated posture had been left under the bridge that night. Tyler, still wrapped in his blanket, watched everything in silence, but inside he was at war. He didn't want to go back to the streets. But I also didn't want to be the reason why a mysterious millionaire became the target of someone with such a dark past. What exactly does your brother want? Tyler asked carefully. Ethan stopped walking. She looked at him, took a deep breath and said, He thinks I have to pay for what I did. Tyler felt a tightness in his throat. For what, Ethan? You didn't tell me that part. Ethan looked away, as if the window were an easy escape. The last person I tried to help disappeared after spending the night with me, just like you are now. Tyler swallowed hard. Ethan continued. The police investigated. My brother testified against me. He said I was hiding something. He said I had lured her in. Ethan's eyes welled up with tears, but he didn't let them fall. I never touched her. I would never hurt anyone, but the media destroyed my life for months. Tyler took a step closer. He didn't know why, perhaps instinct, perhaps empathy, but Ethan seemed like someone who needed to be heard. And she was never found. Ethan shook his head. No. And that's why he thinks I'm guilty, and that now I'm repeating the pattern. Tyler felt his stomach churn. But you're not. Ethan finally looked at him, and there was so much pain there that Tyler almost recoiled. But he believes so, and when he believes in something, he took a deep breath. He takes justice into his own hands. A chill ran through Tyler's body. Before he could answer, someone knocked on the door. 1, 2, dry, firms. Ethan paled. Are you waiting for someone? Tyler asked in a whisper. No. The beats came again, louder than before. Tyler instinctively recoiled. Ethan raised his hand, asking for silence. He tiptoed to the door, peering through the peephole. The silence lasted 3 eternal seconds. Then Ethan whispered, Shit, is it him? Tyler asked, almost breathless. Ethan slowly closed the visor. It's his car. But it's not him at the door. Tyler's eyes widened. Who then? Ethan took a step back without taking his eyes off the door. His lawyer. Tyler's heart raced. What does she want? Ethan took a deep breath. When she appears, it's because something very bad has already begun. The door received one last knock, this time accompanied by a firm voice. Ethan, open up. We need to talk. It's urgent. Tyler felt the world shrink. And Ethan, for the first time since Tyler met him, seemed genuinely scared. The voice on the other side of the door had something sharp about it. She wasn't aggressive. It was the kind of firmness that only those who handle secrets know how to use. Ethan stood motionless for a few seconds, as if trying to decide between escaping through the window or turning the doorknob. Tyler, his heart pounding in his chest, whispered, Are you going to open it? Ethan closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and replied, If I don't open it, she'll get in anyway. He walked to the door with slow steps. Each movement seemed calculated, deliberate. When he finally turned the doorknob, Tyler retreated into the kitchen hallway, trying not to be too conspicuous. The door opened, and there she was. A woman in her 40s, impeccable posture, dark suit under an expensive overcoat. Hair pulled back, subtle makeup, a gaze that could pierce any facade. She went in even before Ethan invited her. "We need to talk. Now," he said bluntly. Ethan swallowed hard. Tyler remained partially hidden, but the woman spotted him within seconds and analyzed him from head to toe with almost military speed. "So this is the boy we're talking about." Tyler felt the weight of those words. It wasn't a judgment, it was an observation. Ethan stepped forward, trying to shield Tyler with his body. "He has nothing to do with this." The lawyer raised an eyebrow. "And you think your brother will believe that?" Silence. The woman sighed, took off her overcoat, and folded it with extreme precision, as if controlling her clothes was a way of controlling the situation. "Your brother is spiraling out of control. When he walked into the office today, I knew something was wrong." Ethan frowned. "What did he do?" The lawyer stared at the two of them, gauging the impact of what she was about to say. "He hired a private investigator to follow you." Tyler felt an emptiness open up inside his chest. Ethan turned white. "When?" he asked, his voice almost breaking. "Yesterday. As soon as I found out you were involved with another young man under delicate circumstances." Tyler clenched his fists, indignant. "I'm not a police case." But the woman did not look at him with disdain. Actually, she seemed worried. "I know that. But he wants proof. And when his brother wants something, he pushes until he gets it." Ethan pulled a chair toward himself, as if his legs wouldn't hold him up. "He's going to try to frame me again." The lawyer did not respond. That silence was confirmation. Tyler felt his stomach churn. "What do we do?" The lawyer observed him more closely this time, as if she were evaluating not only Tyler, but the relationship between him and Ethan. Then she said, "First, you need to know what really happened with the other girl." Ethan's eyes widened, tense. "No, I've already relived this for months. I don't—" The lawyer raised her hand, cutting him off. "Ethan, someone sent an anonymous email this morning." He stood motionless. Tyler was barely breathing. The lawyer opened the folder she was carrying. From there, he took out a printed sheet. He placed it on the table, and he pointed with his finger. "The missing girl was seen yesterday." Tyler felt the ground disappear beneath him. And this meant something that could turn the whole story upside down. The lawyer added, "And she wasn't alone." Ethan froze. Tyler, too. The lawyer took a deep breath and said, "She was with her brother." Silence fell over the apartment. The air in the apartment became heavy, dense, almost impossible to breathe. Ethan remained motionless, as if the world had stopped. Tyler felt a tingling sensation down his spine, not from fear, but from the feeling that they were all trapped inside a revelation too enormous to contain. The lawyer waited a few seconds before continuing. Her calmness wasn't indifference. It was the kind of calm that comes from knowing that the truth is always worse than the first blow. The image is not perfect. It may have been altered. It may be fake. She paused briefly, seriously. "But if it's real, you need to understand what that means." Ethan ran his hand over his face. "It means that everything I was accused of, everything they destroyed in my life," his voice began to fail, "it was a setup by my own brother." The lawyer did not confirm, but he didn't deny it either, and that said it all. Tyler stepped forward, indignant. "Why would he do that? Why?" The lawyer looked at him as if she were seeing something more than just the skinny boy who had slept under a bridge the night before. "Because people like Ethan's brother don't handle loss well." "Lose what?" Tyler insisted. The lawyer crossed her arms. "Control." Ethan stood up, uneasy. A surge of nervous energy coursed through his body, as if he were about to break something, or to break from the inside. "He's always been like this, always. But I never imagined it would get to this point." Tyler approached him, hesitantly. "Ethan, he might be trying to repeat that now. With me." The lawyer confirmed with a slight nod. Yes, and that's why you can't go back out on the street. Tyler felt a profound sense of unease, as if his destiny had been snatched from his hands without warning. I don't want to be part of a war between the two of you, but it already is, the lawyer said with cutting frankness. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, as if the ambient light hurt. Why would he be with her? Why would he bring the girl back now after so much time? The lawyer opened the folder and took out another sheet of paper. Because he wants to destroy you once and for all. And for that reason, he flipped the paper, a cold printed phrase in large letters, finish him off before he gets ahead of us. Tyler felt his heart freeze. Who was this sent to? The lawyer replied, for the private investigator. A deathly silence filled the room. Ethan took a step back and accidentally bumped his head on the table. His body was trembling. Tyler went to him, not because he understood everything, but because he knew how to recognize someone on the verge of collapse. Ethan, we need to think. We need to move. The lawyer took a deep breath. You have two options now. They both looked at her, clinging to what little stability remained. The lawyer raised two fingers. First, stay here and wait for your brother to take the next step. She lowered a finger. Second, disappear for a few hours, maybe days, until I can prove that the image is real. Ethan ran his hand through his hair. What if she's not real? The lawyer stared at him with an intensity that startled even Tyler. Then we're dealing with someone more dangerous than you think. Tyler swallowed hard. So, what do you recommend? She did not hesitate. Disappear today. Now. Ethan looked at Tyler. Tyler looked at Ethan, and neither of them knew where to go. But they knew that staying there, it was no longer an option. The decision hung in the air like a sentence. Ethan was breathing fast, almost gasping for air. Tyler felt his own pulse throb in his ears, a mixture of fear and adrenaline he had never experienced at that level. The lawyer slammed the folder shut with controlled force. You have 15 minutes maximum. Ethan finally made a move. Fast, practical, the type of movement that only appears when survival comes into play. He opened drawers, grabbed a backpack, put in documents, some sealed packets of money, and a heavy coat. Tyler watched everything, feeling like he was in the middle of a hurricane with no fixed point. Should I take something? He asked. Ethan paused for a moment, looked at the boy, and replied, Take only what you can't afford to lose. Tyler looked around. What couldn't he afford to lose? He had nothing. After a few awkward seconds, he just shook his head. So, nothing. The lawyer stared at him with a look that mixed pity and legal calculation. This could be your salvation, or your downfall. Tyler didn't answer. He didn't know what to say. While Ethan was checking the backpack, the lawyer approached Tyler and spoke softly. You trust him, right? Tyler replied immediately, without thinking, Try. The lawyer raised her eyebrows, as if that said more about Tyler than he realized. So, trust me until the end, because from now on, there will be no middle ground. Before Tyler could ask what she meant by that, Ethan stepped back and handed him a heavy coat. It's going to be cold outside. Tyler put on his coat. It was comfortable, warm, and expensive. He felt strange inside, as if he were occupying the place of someone he wasn't. The lawyer opened the door slowly, peeking down the hallway. The elevator is stuck between floors. That's no coincidence. Ethan clenched his teeth. My brother always knew how to manipulate the structure. The emergency staircase, then, she concluded. The three of them went out into the hallway. The cold light from the sensors turned on, creating long shadows that seemed to follow their steps. Tyler felt his whole body tense up. He wasn't used to expensive buildings, much less being hunted in them. They arrived at the red door of the staircase. The lawyer placed her hand on the panic button, but before opening it, she looked at Ethan one last time. I'll cover your tracks for a few hours. I can't promise more than that. That's enough. Yes, Ethan. She took a deep breath. Don't come back here until I call you, even if something seems urgent, especially if it seems urgent. Ethan agreed seriously. The lawyer pushed the door open. A cold wind surged up the stairs. Tyler felt the tension explode in his nerves. The three of them started to descend, quickly, but without running. Each floor seemed like an invisible obstacle, until a metallic clang echoed from below. It's as if someone had hit a handrail. Tyler froze. Ethan tugged at his arm, gesturing for him to stand behind him. The lawyer went down 2 more steps, peeked over the landing, and returned immediately with a transformed expression. "Someone is coming up." Tyler felt the ground shake. "Is he the investigator?" The lawyer shook her head. Firm ground, heavy footsteps, aggressive rhythm. She looked directly at Ethan. "He's your brother." The silence was broken in an explosion. "Come back," Ethan whispered, pulling Tyler away. They went up 2 flights of stairs without thinking. Tyler felt his heart in his throat, his breath failing, his body screaming to stop. But he didn't stop. They arrived on the 8th floor. The lawyer opened the door to the side corridor. "Come in, quickly." As soon as they crossed the street, she closed it slowly and secured the bar with a silver clasp she took from her own bag. "This will hold for a few minutes." Ethan leaned against the wall, his chest rising and falling rapidly. Tyler felt something inside him break, not from fear, but from a collision with reality. The lawyer put the folder away and said, "You need to exit through the underground parking lot. My car is there." Ethan nodded. Tyler too. But as they began walking toward the inner staircase, a sound cut through the air. Track! The emergency door latch began to give way. Someone strong, was breaking in. The lawyer whispered almost voicelessly, "He's coming after you." The next blow made the metal creak. Tyler felt his blood run cold. And Ethan, for the first time, gripped Tyler's wrist tightly. Not as protection, but as a silent promise. They ran. And behind them, the sound of the door being destroyed echoed like the beginning of the end. The hallway on the 8th floor seemed endless, the sound of metal twisting behind them, crack, ricocheted off the walls like a living threat. Tyler ran alongside Ethan, feeling his arm being pulled firmly. The lawyer was right behind her, faster than someone of her elegant bearing should be. When they reached the door leading to the internal staircase, Ethan opened it forcefully, and they all went inside. They went down 2 flights of stairs quickly. Tyler almost tripped, but Ethan instinctively grabbed his waist, preventing him from falling. "Thanks, keep going," Ethan whispered without looking back. The noise above them was getting closer and closer. Quick steps, heavy, determined. He was different from the investigator. Unlike any persecution, it was personal. When they reached the 5th floor, the lawyer raised her hand, asking them to stop. They both froze. She pressed her ear against the door of the hallway on that floor. 1 second, 2, 3. Clean corridor. She opened it slowly. As soon as the 3 of them entered the hallway, Tyler sensed something strange, a vibration, a distant hum, as if a system was switching on. Ethan noticed it too. "Did you hear that?" Before the lawyer could respond, a click echoed through the ceiling. And then the hallway lights all turned on at once, shining too brightly. Tyler blinked, taken aback. The lawyer whispered, horrified, "He activated the motion sensors on that floor." Ethan turned pale. "Now he knows exactly where we are." Tyler felt the pressure in his chest increase, a feeling of being targeted. "Tracking. We have to run." The lawyer pointed to the end of the hallway. "That freight elevator. It still operates manually." They started running. The hallway was long and silent, but the silence was broken only by the heavy breathing of the 3. Until track, 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 track. Quick steps on the emergency staircase. Someone descending in the most dangerous way possible, jumping flights of stairs. Tyler didn't need to look to know it was Ethan's brother. The lawyer ran faster. "Hurry, hurry!" When they reached the freight elevator, Ethan pressed the button. Nothing. Again, nothing. "Ethan!" Tyler started. But the lawyer opened the side panel, took out a metal card, and created a precise short circuit. The elevator groaned. It trembled. And he started to walk down towards them. This is it. Very slow. Too slow. The footsteps on the stairs were getting closer and closer. It was almost like thunder. Ethan began pacing in circles, desperate. "He's going to get us here. He's going to—" Tyler gripped his arm firmly. "Look at me." Ethan stared at him, his eyes filled with fear. "We're going to get out of here." The elevator arrived at the floor. The doors opened. The lawyer pushed Tyler first. "Come in." Ethan entered right behind him. She was the last to enter and pressed the button for the parking lot. The doors began to close. 5 centimeters, 4, 3, and then an arm coming in. A strong arm, with an expensive watch, with bulging veins, holding the doors open with ease, and a low voice, laden with venom. "Ethan, my brother." Panic gripped the elevator. Tyler backed away so quickly that he bumped into the boxes. The lawyer raised the folder as if it were an improvised weapon. Ethan stood there, petrified, staring at that face so similar to his own, but distorted by an ancient rage. The brother pushed the door open further, making room to enter. His gaze fell on Tyler, and then came the smile. "Are you the new one?" Tyler felt a cold shiver run through his entire body. Ethan lost control. He took a step, pushed his brother with all his might. "Stay away from him." The brother stumbled slightly, surprised. It was the second one the lawyer needed. She pressed the emergency button. The doors slammed shut with brutality and speed. The brother tried to force it, but this time, trapped at the wrong angle, he couldn't hold on. The door crushed his fingers. He screamed in pain, and the door slammed shut completely. The elevator began to descend, slow at the beginning, then faster. Tyler fell to the floor, trembling. Ethan pressed his forehead against the elevator wall, trying to breathe. The lawyer put away the metal card and finally said, "He's not going to stop now." Tyler looked up. "What do we do when we get down there?" The lawyer looked at him with utter seriousness. "The hardest part. And then to flee, knowing that he has already crossed the line between brother and enemy." The elevator continued to descend, and each meter brought them closer to a world where nothing, absolutely nothing, would be the same again. The freight elevator creaked as if it were being ripped from the building itself. Tyler stood up slowly, holding onto the wall as the metal vibrated. Ethan barely blinked. It seemed as if she could both see and not see at the same time. The lawyer watched the two of them, attentive, tense, but firm. When the elevator finally reached the basement, the doors opened with a low creaking sound. The parking lot was almost completely dark, lit only by flickering fluorescent lights. Most of the cars belonged to the company itself, lined up, silent, like mute witnesses. The lawyer left first. "Stay behind me." Tyler and Ethan followed. The silence was so heavy that each footstep echoed for seconds. Tyler looked around, uneasy. "Are you sure he can't access it from here?" The lawyer replied without stopping walking. "He doesn't have physical permission at that level. But if he's already taken control of the building..." She didn't finish. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, breathing too fast. "I should have cut off contact years ago. I should have made it clear. I should have..." "No." Tyler grabbed his arm. "You are not responsible for his choices." Ethan's eyes softened for a second, but only for a second. Because a metallic noise echoed behind them, much louder than anything should have been in that space. Tyler froze. The lawyer turned her body around immediately. Backwards. A car in the distance, a black SUV, swayed slightly, as if something had bumped into it, or someone. And then a voice came, distant, amplified, coming from the parking lot sound system. "Ethan, you guys ran so much." Tyler's heart sank. It was him, the brother, and the sound was coming from all sides. Above, Below, from the walls, from the broken speakers, he had access. The lawyer whispered angrily. "He got into the system." The brother's voice continued, soft and cruel. "But you know, Ethan, when you run from family, family follows." Tyler looked at Ethan. Ethan seemed to shrink inside, as if that phrase had been said many times before, somewhere else, in another life. The lawyer pulled a device out of her pocket. A key. "That's the car." She pointed to a discreet silver sedan in the corner. They started walking quickly, almost running, but the voice returned. "The problem isn't you, Tyler." Tyler stopped in shock. My blood ran cold. "It's him." Tyler heard Ethan hold his breath. "He destroys everything he touches. He always has. And now, you." Tyler couldn't even answer. The lawyer pulled Tyler by the arm. "He wants to destabilize you. Ignore him." But Tyler couldn't ignore it. His brother knew his name. He knew he existed. They knew of the connection. They reached the car. The lawyer unlocked it with a low beep. They got in quickly, Tyler in the back seat, Ethan in the front. The lawyer started the engine. The car vibrated. The light from the exit illuminated the end of the ramp. They were just a few meters away from freedom, but when she sped up, the exit gate closed by itself, like a blade. It closed with a bang, and it froze. The lawyer hit the steering wheel. He locked the gate. Tyler looked out the back window. The darkness seemed even denser. Then two lights came on in the background, lighthouses, strong, targeted specifically at them, and then an engine purred underground. This is it. Safe, predatory. The brothers' car began to move forward, emerging from the shadows as if it were appearing in a nightmare. Tyler felt the air escape his lungs. Ethan murmured, "He's going to hit." The lawyer hooked the defendant. "Then we'll get out of the way." Tyler gripped the seat with both hands as their car sped past, swerving. His brother's car accelerated as well, following suit. It was a deadly game of chess played at a slow pace, confined, trapped, with no way out. Their engine roared. His engine roared even louder. Tyler shouted, "It's going to crash!" The lawyer turned the steering wheel, scraping the side of the car against a pillar. Sparks. Smells like rubber. But they managed to escape by a second. The voice returned, this time coming from inside the car, through the speakers. "Just to be clear, I don't want to hurt you, Ethan." Break. "I want to hurt her." Tyler swallowed hard. Ethan turned to him with a desperation Tyler had never seen before. "Tyler, get down!" And then the brothers' car came straight towards them, accelerating violently. The lawyer was shouting instructions. Ethan reached out to protect Tyler like a human barrier. The impact was seconds away. The sound of the engine was getting closer, stronger, closer, more. The cold wind cut through the silence of the early morning as Ethan watched, from a distance, the federal agents removing the last boxes from the hidden Montgomery Industries facility. The place, a seemingly abandoned warehouse, now teemed with lights, cameras, and voices trying to understand how one of the largest corporations in the U.S. had maintained such a dirty scheme for so long, and how a street kid had been at the center of its downfall. Jordan, standing beside him with a thermal blanket draped over his shoulders, watched everything with a strangely mature calm. In the last few days, he had been interrogated, examined, protected, pressured, and in a way freed. Gregory's secret, what he did with vulnerable minors, what he had covered up, what his fortune had concealed, was finally exposed. And there was no going back. Gregory Montgomery's career was officially destroyed. He would be indicted for crimes that went far beyond what was imagined, and his desperate attempt to place the blame on Ethan and Jordan himself was quickly dismantled. The press was already calling him the Bridge Predator, a nickname that made Jordan shudder. Ethan placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. "It's over," he said in a low voice. Jordan looked up, still wary of the words. He'd spent years listening to promises that turned to dust, but there was something different here. Ethan wasn't an unlikely savior. He was a broken man finding purpose by reaching out to someone the world had chosen to ignore. Social workers wanted to get Jordan into government programs. But surprisingly, the judge in charge of the case, after reviewing the psychological reports, the bond between the two, and the real risk of retaliation, approved something unexpected. Ethan would be his temporary legal guardian. When the decision was announced, Jordan froze. He didn't smile, he didn't celebrate. He simply said, "Are you sure?" Ethan took a deep breath, as if that question required more courage than facing the entire Montgomery family. "I do. And if you want, we can start from scratch. No debts between us, no secrets." Jordan finally smiled. A small, brief smile, but genuine. The kind of smile that only appears when an entire world of distrust begins, for the first time, to crack. As they walked to the car, Ethan realized something that hit him hard. He had entered that bridge trying to escape his own life, and he was leaving with a new reason not to give up on it. Jordan got into the car, still recognizing the smell of the expensive upholstery, but now without fear of getting it dirty. Ethan started the engine. "Where are we going?" Jordan asked. Ethan thought for a moment. "Wherever you want to go." Jordan looked out the window, watching the city lights reflect off the tall buildings. "So, let's go home." And for the first time, the word home made sense to both of them. Months later, Jordan walked across the same bridge where it all began. Not to run away, but to remember. Now, with clean clothes, a new backpack, and a planned future, he watched the river flow below. Ethan waited for him in the car, patient as always. Jordan placed his hand on the cold handrail. That place was no longer a symbol of pain, but of change, transformation, a new beginning. Before leaving, he murmured to himself, "Thank you for showing up that night." And the bridge, silent, seemed to hold their secret and their rebirth. If this story touched you, share your impressions, reflections, and feelings. Stories like Jordan and Ethan's show that unexpected encounters can change entire destinies, and perhaps someone close to you needs just that. A look, a chance, a bridge between despair and hope. Leave your comment, recommend the story, and tell us what else you'd like to see explored. Your involvement helps keep alive narratives that speak of courage, pain, overcoming adversity, and second chances. Thank you for following along this far.